Welcome to Sense of Style. I'm Stuart. Today we're talking holy grails for a hardcore collector like me. That's really meaningful. I'm a pretty rational person, but when I get a holy grail fragrance, it can become an emotional experience. For a collector like me, it's extremely important. It can make my day, my week, or my month. Holy grail fragrances are usually very hard to get, very expensive, of high quality, or a combination of all three. They are on the next level. Let's get to it. Jeremy Fragrances had a massive impact on the fragrance community and on me. It's unfortunate what's happened to him lately. He seems to be a little bit more unstable, but he really was a phenom back in the day. And one of the things that was amazing about him was, I felt anyway, just how sincere he was about his love for fragrances and some fragrances in particular. This was the fragrance for me that I didn't just want to try. I had to try it. This is Jean-Paul Gaultier's Le Male, and Jeremy's father, this was his fragrance, and his father had just passed away. And the way he talked about this made it seem life-changing. To be honest, this is a fragrance that at the moment, and even back then when I first tried it, I liked it. I didn't love it. But it was the desire, the absolute mythology that he created around this fragrance. I just had to try. I don't think there's another fragrance that I wanted to try more. It did shock me, just the sheer amount of sweetness, because at the time, this was from my very first fragrance haul, I really hadn't tried anything super sweet like that. Nowadays, this is sort of run-of-the-mill level sweetness, but back then, and for me, when I first tried it, it was something different. I'll never forget the absolute obsession that I had with trying this fragrance, just wanting to know what this mythological fragrance smelled like. This is Chanel Allure Homme Sport Eau Extreme, and this was either the first or second fragrance that I paid full retail for. I knew enough about fragrances to know that I should not be paying full retail, but I didn't know was the only way you could get Chanel was to pay full retail. But either way, this fragrance was definitely more hyped than the other one that I paid full retail for. I don't know what it is about this fragrance, but 3 or 4 years ago, the hype around this one was absolutely crazy. This was one I had to try. This is one that totally lived up to expectations. I adore this fragrance. But I've never seen a fragrance be so high up and then just fall so quickly. I think it's because of the projection here. For the money, the projection is not great. But the scent itself is a masterpiece in subtlety. You've got the freshness of mandarin and mint, and then the sweetness of the tonka bean. I love this fragrance. I adore it. Although I will say this, paying full retail at a store feels way more expensive than using your credit card on the internet. Even if you're paying full retail on the internet, that sort of personal one-to-one experience. And that's what I did with this. And it felt almost a little dirty, but I love it, so I'm glad I have it. This is Sebastian. He has a channel called The Perfume Guy. I think he's around 200,000 subscribers. And Sebastian has a big room full of fragrances. He has well over 1,000 fragrances, the majority of which are niche. He's a world traveler, and I remember he had a video where he said, I was in Paris last week, and I was running a little low of my Jora Mihail parfum. And so I went into duty free and I picked up a couple of bottles before I flew back to America. And I can remember sitting at the time, never having even been able to buy Jora Mihail parfum. And I hated him in that moment. I really did. He's got an amazing channel. He's a really nice person. I've never met him, but just from what I can see on the channel. But it's just, I was so envious. I really wanted to try it. He's also said, even though he has like well over 1,000 niche fragrances, his favorite fragrance of all time is a designer, and it's this. It is Jora Mihail parfum. And when a guy like that, who knows everything about fragrances, had a chance to try everything, when he says that this is his favorite fragrance, when I saw last July that it was available at one of the discounters My hands were shaking on the keyboard as I ordered it. No, it wasn't an addiction. It was excitement. I had never seen it for sale before. It arrived on July 13th, 2022. Love this fragrance. It is so bizarre. Heavy, heavy iris and heavy, heavy leather should not work together, and yet Demachy managed to make it work. It also has oud and then powdery sandalwood. This is a cold weather masterpiece fragrance. This was a real holy grail. Tom Ford has probably had a bigger impact on fragrances than any other single person in the United States over the last 20, maybe 30 years. In 1999, he was hired as the creative director of Yves Saint Laurent. And then in 2002, in conjunction with Alberto Morillas and Jacques Cavalier, two of the world's best perfumers, he created M7, which is the very first mass available oud fragrance for the Western world. Oud has been popular in the Middle East for centuries, maybe millennia, but it was hardly available at all in the West. M7 changed that. It was a dirty, deep oud fragrance. Pretty soon after its release, every fragrance house wanted to have an oud fragrance. It was discontinued. And then in 2011, Yves Saint Laurent released this. This is M7 Oud Absolu. Since 2011, the M7 Oud Absolu bottle has changed 3 times. This is the latest one. It is a toned down, more civilized, or sort of mass appealing dirty oud fragrance that's easier to wear than the original M7. And as an oud lover and as someone that likes and appreciates a dirty oud, I had to have this and I got it. The great thing about this is even though it is a toned down version, it has what made the original so spectacular was the use of orange with oud, which I remember thinking was ridiculous, but it works. You get orange and oud in the opening, and it's fantastic. Yes, it's not beast mode like the original. It's still got very good performance. It is a dirty oud, but a soft dirty oud. It is very accessible. This was one that I really wanted to have. One that I didn't want to have or didn't care about was this. YSLY Eau de Parfum. At the time when I bought this, I already had 25 blue fragrances. I didn't need any more. I had all the big ones, the Bleu de Chanel's, the Dior Sauvages, and a whole whack more. I just didn't find the need for this. The only reason I bought this was it was an incredible price. It was in a 60 ml bottle. I knew that a 100 ml bottle I wouldn't use, I wouldn't need. So I bought it. I had no expectations for it. And then I tried it. And then I realized why I kept hearing so much about it. This is in the same, to me anyway, on the same level as Bleu de Chanel. I didn't think that was possible. I really didn't. And in some ways, I find this easier to wear, or certainly more versatile. And I discovered a note that I absolutely adore. It's a very expensive aroma chemical. It's called amberwood. There's tons of this in the base. It's a woody note with a little bit of sweetness. I really, really like this. And honestly, I didn't know that I had a huge hole in my blue fragrance collection until I got this. And now, whenever I think of blue fragrances, I'm always like, whew, glad I have this. Yeah, this is one that I smile just thinking about the fact that I do own it. That's crazy. This is Le Mal Le Parfum. This is a fragrance where, in terms of desire, all the stars aligned. It was my style of fragrance. It came in this crazy, iconic bottle, of which there are now almost 160 fragrances that come in this bottle. And there was everything about it. It was super hyped. I really, really wanted it. And then I got it, and I love it. I love having it. The one thing about this, though, is I will never believe any reviewer that tells me that there is a connection between this fragrance and this one because of the lavender note. That's rubbish. This is a completely separate fragrance altogether. I don't care. I don't mind. I just don't want to hear that. But this has cardamom, oriental notes, and vanilla. Yes, it has a lavender note. No, I can't smell it. Do I think it does anything and makes a connection to this? No, I don't at all. I could be wrong. This is a subjective thing. But yeah, anyway, bottom line is, love this fragrance. Always will. Have you ever tried something and gone, why didn't I know about this? Where has this been all my life? and gotten really frustrated because you liked it so much and you'd gone so long in your life without ever knowing about it? That's what this did for me with oud. This was the first oud fragrance I ever tried. And when I tried it, look, I'd heard a ton about oud. And honestly, I had no idea whether I'd like it or not. Not a clue. I didn't know that I needed it until I tried this. And quite honestly, this is the perfect starter oud fragrance. It's perfect because oud is a very heavy note, and this uses black pepper and saffron to lighten it up a whole ton and make it accessible to anyone. It's also got a ton of cardamom, which is really spicy and a familiar note and allows you to sort of gently work your way into understanding what oud is. As soon as I got this, I put a massive dent in the bottle, and I've been cautious with it ever since. I love this fragrance, and this fragrance was my introduction to oud. I'm so grateful for it. Now, this one's a little bit different, and I wonder if you guys have any similar experiences. I don't normally ask for comments because it seems like a tactic that people use to get a better analytics, but I am genuinely curious because this is Acqua di Parma Colonia. And even when I bought this, I knew full well that this was not the hottest or the best or the most up-to-date Acqua di Parma. I bought this because of its connection to the film industry. So this was something outside of perfumery is the reason that I brought this. And I'm wondering if there's any other of you guys that have done the same thing. Maybe an athlete that wore a certain fragrance and you had to have it because of that. But this was a fragrance that started out in the early 30s and was a big part of Hollywood fragrances well into the 50s. 4 iconic people were closely associated with Acqua di Parma Colonia. Cary Grant, Ava Gardner, David Niven, and Audrey Hepburn all wore this fragrance, all loved this fragrance. And Cary Grant in particular, he was such an iconic old-style movie star. He was kind of like Tom Hanks, except the women loved him. Like he had everything. And this was his fragrance of choice along with Green Irish Tweed. But I really wanted to try this. Even though I knew there were better Acqua di Parmas out there, I wanted to have something that I knew those old Hollywood people would have worn. And so I got this, and I'm so glad I did. Anyway, holy grails, holy crap. These are great fragrances. Hope you enjoyed the video, guys. Have a good weekend.